When you hit record and you literally go like "Vroom, vroom, vroom," and like change who you are, don't start speaking.
You're listening to Creative Rebels, the podcast for creatives. Welcome back, Rebels. I'm doing a thing and I would love you to come to the thing. So I'm giving away 400 pieces of original art. I've made 400 screen prints. I have spray painted over every single one so that each piece is unique. And I'm going to be giving them away on the 24th and 25th of May. So if you'd like a free piece of art, please come along. The only caveat is, in order to get a piece of art, you have to bring me something that you've made. And that can be anything. It can be a song on a USB stick. It can be a cake that you've baked. It can be something you've drawn, whatever your imagination can think of. So the details will be in my Instagram bio. Once the tickets go live, the tickets are going live on the 9th of May. And it would be amazing to see some of you guys down there. So if you're London based and you want to swap some art with me, then head to @DavidSpeed UK on the gram and you'll find the details. Now, on with the episode. Welcome back, Rebels. I really didn't think that the landscape would have changed so drastically since the last series of Creative Rebels. It's been 3 years since the last series, and I didn't think things would have changed that much, but I'm noticing in so many of the people that I'm interviewing, social media and phone use and the internet is really such a prominent topic in such a different way to what it was 3 years ago. I think social media is dead, and now we have content media, and that's a very different thing. And I know most creatives don't enjoy making content. Most of us can't imagine anything worse than like sitting down and staring into the black abyss of a camera with no one on the other end. And it's just like a scary situation. But I think somewhere deep down, you probably know that if you want to make it big online, just a beautiful carousel of still images of the craft that you make is probably not going to cut it. And like I've seen so many music artists, for example, complaining about how the song and the music is not enough. Now it has to be like this backstage look at their entire lives. And that's scary, inconvenient, and it means like so much work in like, so now I if I'm making videos for social media now, I used to just post a time lapse, and I used to say to people like, you're making that work anyway. All you've got to do is stick your phone in the corner while you're making that work, document it and put it up on social media. Easy. That's the advice I would have given you 3 years ago. It's not that landscape anymore. Like we've all seen a time lapse. It doesn't have the same impact. So now when I record videos, I have a script. I have to get loads of B-roll. There's like so much planning that goes into it. If the lighting in my studio looks bad, then I scrap the whole video. All of these things, all of these considerations make it like a full-time job. And I think that fatigue really sets in. You know, one of the things that you're not going to get fatigued by is just talking to camera, because that's essentially really easy. I mean, I'm doing it now. And you'll notice in this episode with Justin Schuman that's coming up, I made him a promise to do stuff like this a little bit more. I haven't scripted this intro, and so I'm just throwing it against the wall. And that was his advice to me because that's an easier way of doing things. Like, so we've got to make things easier for ourselves. But social media, if it's not for you and you're not enjoying it, then there's going to be guests coming up soon who have walked away from social media altogether or cut back on it drastically and are using other ways. There are other ways to connect, to get out there, to get noticed, to get attention to your work. So we will definitely be exploring those things. But today we're talking to Justin about how to show up online. And it starts off as showing up online, but I think Justin's an expert in helping people make better content, but I think his work goes deeper than that. I think so much of his work gets to the core of like how we show up for others and how we communicate and tell stories. And I guess how we can be more open and start to relax into the fact that who we are will attract who we're meant to attract, if that makes sense. Because isn't that beautiful? Like if the alternative to doom scrolling is posting a beacon of light into the air that attracts a group of like-minded followers, supporters, patrons, and those new connections that are really enriching. So I think you'll get a lot out of this episode. I got so much out of it, out of being the interviewer. I need to be more brave. I need to take my own advice. I need to, because social media is a tool that I do want to utilize. I know there are ways to make it without, but it's one that I want to use because I've seen how powerful it is, and it's already changed my life to such a degree. And yes, the work that goes into it is so much harder now. And so that's why I don't post that frequently. I mean, I wait until I've got a really good idea before I post. And maybe again, that's something that I need to work on. Maybe again, I need to just be posting. But whatever your relationship to social media, even if you want to sack it off completely, I still think you'll get a lot from this interview. Justin is one of those people who you can't stump him. Like anything I threw at him, he had perfectly well thought. I was going to say well thought out, but he can just, in the moment, he just is that confident. He knows the answer. He's a very good listener. He's very good at getting to the root of what I'm really saying. So when I'm asking him a question, he knows what is being thrown up that sort of might be a barrier to get to that. So anyway, enough of, see, this is why I script it, because this intro is now too long. So I'm going to stop talking. Let's get to Justin, because he is an incredible human. So today we're joined by Justin Schuman, who off mic for the last 5 minutes I've just been bigging up. But I think you guys are going to love hearing what he has to say, because he's just an incredible human. Emphasis on the word human, because he teaches you how to be more human. Justin, hi.
Hello, David. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. Would it be a stretch to say that TikTok has changed your life?
No. Not at all. I mean, I would be the first one to say that over the last 3 years, social media as an entity has shifted my life, but TikTok especially. It feels like a weird question to answer now after all of the recent kerfuffle over here in the US, but I will still give it praise because, yeah, every facet of my life has changed.
And so that only happens when you start posting. What was it that sort of kicked you into... Were you like kind of on TikTok before, or did you get it specifically so that you could make content? Because I kind of got it and was hanging around there for a little bit and watching videos and like, oh, maybe this might be a space for me before I actually clicked post on anything.
Yeah, I feel like it was part of COVID protocol almost to download TikTok and have no idea what you were doing, at least over here in the US. And so I did download it at the time, and my ex and I, who were obviously like just kind of shut in here in my apartment, but like a lovely space to be shut in. For those who are just listening, there's a lot of plants going on in here. And we did like a couple of little things. I maybe made 1 or 2 videos solo, but I felt so inept. Like for somebody who's pretty tech savvy and uses computers all the time, I had no idea what I was doing with this, what I thought was a very stupid app that all I saw was people dancing and lip syncing. So I think I made probably 4 or 5 videos in 2020 and then was like, cool, bye, and never touched it again. Didn't scroll, didn't consume, just didn't touch it. And then all of COVID, as it did for, I'm certain many, had me asking every single question about myself and my identity. And so I was in a Broadway show at the time. Oh, I was in Tina, the Tina Turner musical, which you guys still have over there, which when I went to London last year, I did get to see, which was so special. And so when we came back post-COVID, I had done so much soul searching and knew that I wanted to just do more. I love performing. I can't wait to go back to Broadway, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I had a feeling that talking on social media had something to do with it. And there's a whole little story in there about niching down and putting yourself in a box, which we can get to if you think that's interesting, because I think creatives often feel like we are just put in boxes, especially by people who aren't us. And I started creating, and in the beginning it felt really bad. And I can again say more on that if that's interesting. And when I finally just said, what if I just showed up with no pretense and just treated this as if it was like Instagram stories almost, just so casual, so easy, what might happen? And that was sort of the incendiary moment. The match was lit and off we went. So in the first full year, I gained something like 232,000 followers. And since now we're nearly up to 700K over on TikTok and 100K over on Instagram, which is very affirming. Although it's obviously just a vanity metric, it's definitely a nice one.
It is. So I think something I struggle with is building community over building a following. And I've had a lot of videos go viral, and I wonder how, and I've got big numbers, but I wonder how many of those people know me for being me. Whereas I feel like, although you call it a vanity metric, I think some metrics are more real than others, because I think that when you need your people, if you were to put out a video and say, something's happened, I need you guys to all do this, a large number of them would be very engaged to do that, because they are part of your community and they know you, they like you, they trust you, they support you, they're on this journey with you. I do want to focus on where you said when you first picked it up, you felt it was really bad, because I think that it's pushing past that bad stage that is so important.
Yeah, 100%. Well, to work backwards, what you said about community versus growth, I think that it is possible to achieve both at the same time. And we can talk like actual like technique and skill if you'd like. I think that's a fascinating conversation to have, and the method and the way in which we tell our stories that I find do both for us. And it's interesting because you're not wrong, but I do want to also throw out there for people who might be listening who don't have a lot of a following and are like, ugh, if only I had the large following, I would have those people too, like you said, do things when I ask them to do. With TikTok especially, less so with Instagram, but with TikTok especially, there's really no guarantee that your followers are going to see your content. And so I say that because as like a consolation prize for folks who are just building right now. And I say that too as somebody who experiences it. And the content still has to be good. Like I am the first person who's like, you should show up and you should push through the discomfort and you should make the shitty content. Like, you're not going to make great content unless you make something that you at least look at and you're like, well, that's pretty fucking miserable. And that's okay. You kind of need to go through that process. But then once you get good at it, and again, there's so many factors to that, but you have to keep showing up and saying things that you stand behind and believe in vehemently. And something you said to me before, I think we were recording, but whether we were in podcast proper yet, I'm not quite sure. You said that it always sounds like I believe what I say and I'm certain of it. And it is such a beautiful compliment for me to receive, because I never think about that. Because I am certain about what I say. And if I'm not certain about what I say, I'm going to tell you that as well. And I think that transparency is one of the most beautiful ingredients in life, but in content especially, because I will be the absolute first person to tell you if it's like, hey, this is the very first time I'm working through this concept that I'm putting out, but it felt like something I wanted to contribute. So like, stick with me. I'm going to do my best. And if it doesn't land, let a bitch know. Like, I'll figure it out, but this is the first time I'm doing it. So I never purport to be something I'm not. And if I don't know what the fuck I'm saying, I'm probably also going to tell you. So when I first started creating on TikTok and I was doing this direct to camera content, why it felt so bad is I felt like there was something I had to be or had to show up as. There was this measure of quote unquote perfection I felt like my content had to contain and come across as. And a lot of that came from within me, because up till that point I had been that kind of person. And again, there's more there as well, just in terms of how social media is not some alternate dimension matrix. It really is this like parallel mirror for the real life experiences, how I look at it, at least.
And we grew up during the Instagram age where everything had to be perfect.
1,000%. And I think that Instagram still carries this sort of vestigial sense of curated or planned. And there's almost something oddly comforting to people about it, but also still like deeply confining in the fact that we're not really calling attention to that. Dialectic is interesting to me, and I do try to do that in my content, and also just share the imperfect and share the flawed, because I just want to be a beacon for others to do the same. But a lot of the language that I also received before I started posting on TikTok, and this is what everyone is told, is that you have to niche down. You have to pick like one small fraction of yourself, a problem that you solve, something that only you can do, and basically speak to that, do that, speak to no one else but your like ideal client or ideal audience member ad infinitum. And I was like, okay, this is what everyone says to do. And I did it. And it truly felt like I was suffocating. I was just like, I feel like I was like a little puppy put in a box, but no one put the air holes in. And I was like, this is horrific. And this speaks to what I was saying before. I realized it hurt so badly because it was just sort of driving the knife in of these habits I'd been practicing for so many years as somebody who had hidden many, many aspects of himself in his real life in an effort to get by unscathed and remain tolerable and palatable to all the people around me, what we commonly call people pleasing. And I just realized, like, holy shit, social media, if you do follow these best practices and this advice that everyone is sharing, you will only continue to cement all of the things that keep you so small in your life. And by that logic, I said, I wonder if we could use social media to undo. If it feels like we could either reify and drive home these habits of playing small, could we potentially leverage it as a tool to instead cut open the box and crack ourselves open?
How many people are playing small?
In the world, on TikTok, like most?
I think, yeah, in the world. It's a high number, right?
It's a wildly high number. I mean, I've worked with, over the last 3 years, over 500 individual clients, and I've also had group memberships and whatever. And I've worked with, everyone from Patty, who's a mom from Ohio, who like has no digital presence quite yet, but feels like there's something she wants to do, but she's terrified, to like CEOs, CFOs, major entrepreneurs, business owners. And this commonality is, well, I do want to create, and I hear what you say in terms of sharing your story and sharing yourself, but ultimately, and I could literally just say like ... who would fucking care? And they're like, yeah, who would care? Why should I do any of this? And that's really where I step in. So I would argue, I think it's a scary thing to say 100% of people, because that's really speaking in absolutes, but let's go with 99% of people that I've worked with are in some capacity hiding some of what's most amazing about them.
And you said that you definitely did used to do that. Now that you're allowing yourself to not do that, how does that feel? Is that a freeing experience?
It's addicting. I mean, and not only is it something that you like do and then crave more of, I think I'll volunteer this piece of information because I share it with clients, and if it's reassuring to anybody listening, I'm grateful. Once you have started to do this exploration and you start to feel what it feels like to really meet yourself where you're at and exist in this place that's like, I'm fully present, I know I'm in my body, I'm very regulated right now, and I can choose with a great deal of agency and autonomy who I'm being. What's so cool about that is once you know what that feels like, there's really no going back, because anything other than that feels hellacious. So you could fall back into old habits, especially if you find yourself on a first date and you get nervous, or at a family reunion, or at a job interview. But you will know that you're not inside your body. You will become so hyper aware of your own discomfort. And hopefully by that point, maybe you followed me, or you've gotten some tools and tips on how to chill the fuck out in those moments and come back to yourself, because you can. And you do have a sense of what that knowing and that internal experience of being yourself is, that you can recreate it. So when you do the work works, is kind of what I'm saying.
As I'm interviewing people, I put myself in the shoes of the listener, and I know there's someone listening to what you're saying and their brain's going a million miles a minute. And if they've listened to enough episodes of this show, they kind of know that if I make content and put it on the internet, there's a good chance I could change my life with that. However, I'm listening to these down, I'm listening to Justin, I'm getting adrenaline because I know this is right. I know this is what I've got to do. But like, where do I start? What do I say? These are very like basic, simple questions, but I think they're the questions that a lot of people, before they've turned the app on, that's what they're thinking.
1,000,000%. And I actually really appreciate you bringing it up, because for what it's worth, I tend to forget to make some of that content because it's just like not in my consciousness, which is not an excuse. It's just once you've sort of become an expert, and I'm sure people listening will resonate with this as well, but once you become an expert in something, you tend to forget what it ever felt like to not know everything that you know. And so as a business owner as well, it's really important to create content along that timeline of people who are again, from barely symptom aware all the way through to technically solution aware, which in a business sense would be like purchasing a product. But yes, where do I start? What do I say? I hate the way I look on camera. I mean, I've heard absolutely everything before. You know, the thing that I do hate, and I hate it for me and I hate it for the experience the person who asks me this question is having, people always say, well, can you give me some tips on how to start? And I always say, I mean, like, I could pull some things, but like, not really. When you ask me that question, what you're hoping is that I have some sort of magic answer you haven't heard anyone give before. And look, I've got some pretty good shit to say. So like I probably will find something that comforts you, but at the end of the day, you either start or you don't. And what you're looking for when you ask me for tips is like, well, how can I massage this entrance into this? How can I make this more so it doesn't feel as excruciatingly uncomfortable? And I'm like, bitch, it's just gonna be excruciatingly uncomfortable. Get the fuck past that part and it will feel better. If I was to say like any sort of a tip is when you go to record yourself on camera, which like I said will be a uniquely bizarre experience, especially if you haven't done it yet, what I ask you to listen for in yourself is that shift that happens when you push the big red button to go to record. So when you hit record and you literally go like, vroom, 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 and like change who you are, don't start speaking. Like let it record and just sit there kind of in silence and be like, what the fuck just happened? And what I'll tell you what just happened is your nervous system just got like extremely dysregulated. So what do you have to do? Is it that you have to sit and you just need to breathe for a bit? Do you need to remind yourself that you're okay? Do you need to remind yourself that you could make this video and actually never post it if it's so hard for you? What do you need to feel safe again in that moment? And when you start to feel yourself regulate, then talk, right? I need you to kind of catch yourself off guard and surprise yourself just a little so that you can kind of start the flow of the words out of your face. But it shouldn't come from a place of like majorly amped, heart racing, pit sweat. That's not where we should start from. That will continue to have you feeling like, not only is this uncomfortable, I will never get better at this.
100%. I think what I love so much about your videos is because on this show, like we've done episodes with people who will help you get off of social media, and I'm not saying that like 100% definitely TikTok is the route that everyone has to go down. I just like to bring in experts who, like we said, well, first thing I asked you, it has fundamentally changed your life. I think I just want to present all of the tools for people. Like this could be really useful for you if you enjoy it, or you can learn to enjoy it after the initial sticky period, because it will be like you just described it. And then some really great things could happen to you. But I think what I love about your videos is that instead of I get served a lot of, I guess it's because I watch them, but I get served on TikTok a lot of like experts who will be like, these are like the top hooks of how to do it. This is how you should make engaging content. I don't know if you've noticed this at the moment. I keep getting these videos that are specifically saying high quality content. It seems to be like this buzzword that's going around at the moment, high quality content. Anyway, and I think with your videos, what I love is that you are giving advice that works on camera for social media, but it's not about algorithms and hooks. And it can also work equally in the real world if you go to a networking event or a job interview, or when you're I guess it's showing up as yourself. These are tips that could help you.
I mean, yes, and I have to mention the high quality content thing for a second, because I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? Do you mean like film this in 4K on my Sony mirrorless camera? Because that's one, completely unnecessary unless you're creating on YouTube. And even then, it's also still like you don't have to go out and buy something. iPhones are great these days. Two, high quality content, again, seems to me to be emphasizing, just if I speak to what I'm feeling coming up for myself when I hear it, everything external, lighting, your sound, etc. When I think of quality content, I could immediately replace content with storytelling. It really just always goes back to storytelling for me. And yes, that is my world. I was an actor on Broadway. I've studied performance for years. I've always been a very verbose, wordy boy. So like storytelling is something I've always taken to pretty naturally and choose to continue to develop and obviously teach to others. But that's actually essential, because then let's jump to what you said at the end, and I appreciate you bringing this up, I think what is hopefully innovative or fresh about my approach to social media is if you really watch any of my videos, we're not talking about content. Like, we're just not. I hope we're not. We're talking about what it means to stop apologizing and make this pretty scary and courageous choice to allow yourself to be seen as you are. Full stop. And the interesting thing, and I said this in a video yesterday, is that that's actually an incredibly easy thing to do and a choice to make. What makes the choice seem so difficult is that you, any listener, any person, still doesn't believe that they're worth anything. And that's why you get a lot of people who create content where it's so quote unquote value forward. That word is so buzzy as well as high quality, especially all my clients. So I don't understand, if I'm not providing value, why would people watch? And I'm like, value doesn't just look like a tip, a trick, a hack, a how-to, a reframe, a quote, a recommendation. I arguably say, and I have data to prove this because I do a lot of intake surveys and onboarding with all of my clients, people sign up to work with me, which is not an inexpensive thing to do, because of my personality, because of who I am, because of who they know I will be for them. Yes, I share a lot of actual value. You will learn a lot by just consuming my content, and I do that on purpose because I also say to people, if you feel like you need to withhold value from your content because you have to charge for it, then you don't have enough value to be charging for, is how I think. Because if I have to think about, well, I can't really share that because that needs to be gate kept and only people who pay me X number of dollars get to know that, then I'm not worth anything, because I still know I could show up and share pretty much absolutely fucking anything in my content, and it still doesn't hold a candle to the amount of intellectual property, to the amount of personalization, to the amount of, frankly, therapy I can and will do with any one individual client. So I do argue that when you show up to create content, to tell stories on social media, you are practicing being yourself publicly, which is the only place that's really worth practicing, because practicing being yourself in private, or all the journaling or all the meditation in the world, none of it is externalizing any of that internal healing. None of that will change your life because you're not actually working on the muscle of standing up and being your fucking self in front of other people who could, quote unquote, at any moment tear you down or comment on that or judge you or perceive you. You need to build that resilience, and you need to build the ability to show up as your fucking self around anybody, anytime, anywhere. Because to me, that's actually what confidence is. Confidence isn't just this like bravura that some people have and some people don't. It's the practiced habit of being yourself and knowing that you can do that whenever, wherever you need or want.
So where do we start? Where do we start with that? What stories how do we work out what the stories are that we should be telling?
It's a great question, and the impulse that's coming up for me right now is something I say sometimes is like, any moment in life, and I mean this 100%, any moment in life where you go, huh, that's a content piece. Like any even quote unquote mundane, banal, insignificant observation, there is something there. Again, immediately people listening, but like, who would care? I promise you, if you put it out there and you commit fully to being yourself while you do, someone will care. Now, I am also saying, if you get 10 views, that's going to feel like shit. I'm saying it out loud. I know how that feels like. I see my clients go through it all the time. It feels bad to do a thing that feels bad and then still have it not be received, because you then perceive that as a confirmation of your assumption that no one cares. That's just simply not true. So you just have to trust me and get over this hump. If you share something that's a realization to you, I guarantee it's a realization to somebody else as well. Now, are they guaranteed to see that piece? No, which is why we got to buy a lot of scratch-off tickets. That's why we have to continue showing up. It's why we have to continue to create content. And I'll also just note that there's a thing in here about, and this word also comes up with most of my clients, well, I really want to be relatable, right? I really want to be relatable, because if I'm relatable, people will watch it. And I will just say out loud too that that's actually not your responsibility. it's not your responsibility to be relatable, because relatability is something that your audience endows you with. It's just your responsibility to show up and allow others to relate to you, which is why it's just as simple as being like, I've had iced coffee for the last 15 years, and today, randomly, for the first time ever, I poured more half and half in than I typically would. And at first I was like, oh God, this is going to be so milky. And I realized I actually loved it. For some reason, like, it cut the taste of the coffee a little bit more, and it was just much more pleasurable to drink. Okay, none of that's actually true for me. I mean, what's actually true is, before this call, I did pour some half and half into my iced coffee, and it was a little bit more than I normally would, but I fucking love like a light and sweet iced coffee. But then I just imagined somebody who had never done that before experiencing that for the first time and doing a piece. Some bitch would comment on that and be like, oh my God, I experienced something like that too. I had cereal once and I put less milk in it and it was so good. Like, there's always something to connect to if you allow people to connect to it by putting it the fuck out there.
I was talking to my mate Matt yesterday, and he said, and he was a little bit pissed off about it, which is quite funny. So I know the right answer, I just don't follow it myself. So I've been saying to Matt, because he's been asking me like, how can he improve and how can he like step up his social media and stuff. And I was like, look, dude, you've got to be talking to camera more. You've got to be, even though I don't fucking do it myself, I know I need to work on it. But anyway, I was giving the advice and not taking it myself. And so Matt did a little thing to camera the other day, talking about the everything drawer, which is the drawer that we all have in our house that's filled with a load of crap that we'll probably never use. And he was like, dude, I got so many more views on that than, he's a screen printer, like, than my prints. He was like, so like, he's like, I'm kind of happy in one way, but I'm also kind of, but it's exactly what you were describing. It's just like letting people into that window of just a random thought, like part of your day. And it helps us to feel like we're mates, I think. And if we're mates, maybe one day we might work together. Maybe we might collaborate on something. Maybe I might buy one of your prints in 6 weeks' time. It's just that familiarity, I suppose, of and that is relatable. We do all have that drawer, and anyone who doesn't have that drawer, you weren't relatable to them, but you'll get them on the next video. And the people that aren't ever going to relate to your stuff, don't go chasing them, because they're not worth catching anyway.
Mm-hmm. And to take that even further, I feel like I'm doing myself such a service and my audience such a service and people who fucking hate me such a service every time I show up and I be myself, because we all get to make a decision from a place of honesty then. Anybody who sees me and is like, this dude's great, they're going to hit follow. And what I know in my heart of hearts is like, cool, what they just saw in my content is me. I mean, like, you and I have never met before, but I hope you feel I am exactly who you thought I would be. Because and I mean, like, from my experience of things, I'm no different in my content than I am with the people I interact with. But the people who also watch my videos and are like, he's fucking annoying, they're out. They don't have to follow me. They don't have to watch. The gag being, I get so many people, only lately, but so many people who are like, you talk so much. And then I'm like, you still follow me. Like, why are you complaining? Also, like, thank you for the engagement. Also, fuck you. This is my entire brand. Also, I absolutely do talk so much. That's who I am. And if it's not for you, please go away. But otherwise, they don't realize how much power they're giving me by being like, ugh, I simply can't stand listening to you talk for so long. I'm like, well, you took the time to leave a comment, which you truly didn't have to. So clearly I got under your skin enough, which means that you are just making me I am the supervillain in your brain who lives there rent free. And thank you for that. I'm appreciative for the room you're giving me. It's just insane. People choose to wield power in such odd ways. But when you show up as yourself, you give everybody the opportunity to make a decision from a place of honesty. I don't have to like somebody who's fake, unbeknownst to me, only to have a moment later where I either get to meet you or get to work with you, and then you come across as duplicitous because I'm like, you are nothing like I thought you would be. So good for your mate. Love that word, never use it. And I'm sitting next to my everything drawer right now, so I'm feeling really emotional about this, you know.
So I heard you say once that being yourself is hard until it's not. Very true. But like a lovely sentence, but the journey to getting there, for me anyway, was a long one. Is that common that people have a long journey to get to that space where they feel that? Hell
yeah. And I'm working on, like, I'm very quietly in the background working on a book right now, and something that I was thinking about the other day is, sure, being yourself is it's also my Instagram bio. I think it's like being yourself is really fucking hard until it isn't, at which point being anything but yourself, being fake becomes unbearable. What I will also say is, quote unquote, being yourself, it's not like a thing. It's like, well, I'm there, I'm done, crossed the finish line.
Yeah.
Quote unquote, being yourself, becoming yourself is actually about allowing yourself to be in a state or a position from which you can always shift, always change, always evolve. You just know that the evolution of yourself is a result of shifts and changes that you're making, not alterations made by external noise or forces. So to simplify all of that, all I'm saying is, yes, the journey is long, and it's not about undoing everything from your past. It's actually about acknowledging and integrating and then saying, cool, although I may have acted in ways in the past that were informed by others, can't change anything that's happened before. So let me fold it all in and kind of like stand at the precipice and go like, okay, here's everything I've been. I'm looking at everything I could become. What do I want? Who do I want to be? Knowing that you get that choice, but that is being yourself. And so I just want people listening or watching to hear that we're not looking to become these finished products. I would argue that anybody who's like, well, I'm good, I'm done, I'm healed, are probably the people who need to do the work the most. But yeah, it takes a long time. I just say that you would observe certain shifts in yourself that would be really desirable, such as you might be tired at the end of a long day, but hopefully you're not depleted, right? There's a difference between like, holy shit, I loved everything I did today. I'm just like exhausted. I can't wait to pass out. And I fucking hate what I do for a job. I hate the people I'm surrounding myself with. I feel like I am running on fumes at all times. Those are two different feelings. And that's one thing I always ask people, like, yeah, when you're tired, are you tired or are you completely devoid of anything at that point because you've spent it in all of the wrong places? So that's a shift you would start to feel. I mean, there's many, but that's one place you can start to check in with yourself and being like, am I on the path? Am I making progress? Yeah. I mean, check in. How do you feel? And that's at least it's a starting point of a metric.
I was lucky enough to interview one of my heroes on this podcast, Seth Godin, and I don't know if you know Seth's work, but one thing that he said that I didn't pull him up on at the time, but I don't agree with him, and it's so difficult to go against one of your heroes like that. But he says, I think authenticity is a crock of shit. He's like, there's no such thing as being authentic. We're authentic when we're babies, and then everything that we do after that point, we are expecting a result from it. And he said that if I wake up and I'm cranky and I go and shout at someone in the street, then that would be me being authentic. And I don't do that because I'm a professional. And I love you, Seth Godin, but I would say that the authentic version of you knows that you're not an asshole. So knows not to shout at someone in the street. It's like me having this conversation with you right now, Justin. I'm speaking to you in exactly the same way that I talk to my mum, that I've got an event tomorrow, I'm going to be up on stage. I'll be speaking to them in exactly the same way. I think authenticity is about your core beliefs and making sure that your behavior maps to the things that you think and feel, and the way that you want people to feel. Like I think kindness and love are really fucking important. And it took me a long time to say that, because especially like making my street art about those kind of topics in a very like macho, let's smash things and destroy things. And I'm coming very much like, no, let's destroy things while we're creating at the same time. It took me a really long time to be okay with saying, we're talking about those themes. And that is me being authentic, is like, no, I fucking believe in this. I think color is important. I think that grey, dull cities are really fucking boring. Like, these are the things that I care about and I'm passionate about. And I think if I speak about them with passion, that makes me authentic. So I know you talk a lot about authenticity. I'm guessing you don't agree with Seth either, that authenticity is a crock of shit.
You know what's really funny? If you watch my content, if you're an avid watcher of my content or you're listening to this and you start to watch my content, one of the words I use very, 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 very rarely, if ever, is authenticity. And the reason for that is not that I think it's a crock of shit, but I think it's a crock of shit because people define authenticity as being yourself. And my argument then is like, and if you have no fucking idea who the you in yourself is, what are you supposed to do? And that's where people get stuck. So like I hear his thing and I could fucking do a whole dissertation on that. But I think this is really important underneath because I would argue to this man, whom I do not know nor have we ever spoken, do you really know who you are if you think the authentic choice would be to go out and yell at that man? Because I actually give you a lot more credit that that's probably not who you are. You just said that the only thing that would make it inauthentic would be the nod to your own professionalism. I was like, no, that's not true. It's like that gets so far outside of who you are inside. You're basically affirming that you are a person who lacks empathy or control over one's actions, which is simply untrue. Do we all lose our temper sometimes? Absolutely. Just because we're acting in a way that is uncontrollable is not what makes authentic authentic. So to me, I gave a TEDx talk in 2022 called The Practice of Being Yourself. And I'm still waiting for it to pop off. So everyone go check it out. And it's sort of like my argument was that if you don't really know who you and yourself is, then the advice be yourself to receive from anyone or to give to anyone else is really shitty because you leave them in this spiral of like, it sounds like it's supposed to be so easy to know I'm just supposed to be myself. Fuck, like this all happens inside, but I don't really know who that is or what that is. And so, but everyone else around me seems to understand what be yourself means. And so I'm flawed. I'm the one who's broken here. So I did assert this, and I still do, that instead of asking, well, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? You could replace who with the word how. How do I feel about this? How would I act in this situation? How could I show up and do X, Y, or Z? And how is interesting because it intimates that there's a verb that follows. And that's where human is a verb. This idea of like, well, you're always just practicing being yourself. It's like yoga. It's like every day it might feel a bit different, but ultimately you are building a skill set of balance, of mindfulness, etc. And so when you start to think of how, it really does become this thing that you can step into and imagine yourself being. Because at first, that's the only thing you're going to have. If you're one of those people who's like, but how do I start creating content? Pretend for a moment, imagine that you can take up that space. I made a video the other day where I talked about, feels really appropriate. Imagine a huge, beautiful, colorful mural on a brick wall, and people come from near and far to gawk and take photos and to ooh and ah. But if that brick wall was blank, they wouldn't. And so what you picture when you think of the people you follow or celebrities are these big, beautiful murals, but none of them started that way. And so if you're like, there's no way I can get to that point from a blank brick wall, I'm asking you to imagine like a barely perceptible pencil tracing of an outline of a thing. And then showing up, being yourself, practicing, fucking failing, and sometimes succeeding. That's what fills in the color. But if you don't know who you are, that's like staring at a brick wall where there's no path forward. If you imagine how, that's sort of equipping yourself with the paintbrush.
I love that so much, obviously. So I like to wrap my listeners of this show up in cotton wool, and they're all my babies, and I want to look after them as much as possible. And so everyone who listens to this show, they identify as a creative person. They make stuff. And when I was pitching to get you on the show, when I emailed, I said, I might be biased, but I think creatives are the people that like most need the kind of help that you give to people. So I'd like to talk about like kind of some of the common barriers that come up with creatives. And I guess what springs to mind first would be apologizing. You mentioned taking up space. How do we get okay with taking up the space, and how do we stop apologizing?
I'll answer it in the way that comes up for me, and I'll work back around to apologizing. I think what's really interesting with creatives is at the root of the word to create, right? We are very used to making things that weren't there previously, at literally like inhabiting invisible air with something we create that exists on the whole outside of ourselves. You're a poet, so you write a poem. You're an artist, so you create a piece of art, or you are a sculptor and you make a vase. We are really used to taking what's inside of our heads, inside of our bodies, inside of our hearts, and through a process of like beautiful flow and vomit, like we create things that exist outside of ourselves.
Magic.
And what's interesting, magic, vomit, and flow, that's the formula. And energetic vomit, naturally. And when I work with creatives, everybody from musicians to honestly like hairstylists to artists to potters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they don't understand, especially when we start working together, like, well, why can't I just post my work? Why can't I just post my screen printing, right? And I say to them, look, there's a lot of fucking talented people in the world. And it almost seems like there's more talent than ever because we just have more access to the people who are talented, given the internet, given social media. It's not enough anymore, unfortunately, to just be really fucking good at what you do, because if we don't know about you and we don't know about your talent, doesn't matter. It's sort of like if a tree falls in the forest, does it ever make a sound? And like, we know it does. We logically know it does. I know there's probably brilliant artists. I live in Harlem in New York City, and this is a very, very artistic area. It's where jazz was born. It's like, this is a very artistic area in New York City. But if I don't see a mural and it has your name on it, and honestly, at this point, some sort of an or a place where I can go see more of your work, it doesn't become prolific. And while that can really sound very 1984 and damning for creativity, I don't mean it to be. I mean to convey that there are opportunities to share what you create, but what's not enough is to just share the creation. We need to know the creator as well. And again, people would like, but why, or how would I do that? So a way you can start is if you, for instance, I don't know if you ever told the mural Nobu story on this podcast, but it's a great one. David should tell it to you all at some point. And if you haven't shared it here, chances are you've never shared it on social, but like, you should, because very TLDR, and I'm not going to tell the story because it's not mine to tell. Also, I would get it fucking wrong. I stayed at a hotel in the UK where David lives, and there is an art piece of his featured prominently at this beautiful hotel, and he can tell you the rest of the story at some time. Keep tuning in. It's when we know the story behind, it's why people love Taylor Swift, right? Like, she lets us in a very manicured way. There are really important boundaries that she sets, I think. But when we know the story behind the creation of a lyric or a melody line, or it's like, this is really specific, but this is how I think in terms of like PR and media and celebrity. Abracadabra, just released by Lady Gaga, like sponsored by MasterCard, I believe. They are now releasing all of this behind the scenes footage. As if the song wasn't popular enough and people fucking love it, they are now strategically, as far as I can see, doling out all of this behind the scenes footage that's only immersing us even further and deeper into the world created by this 3-minute song. Really, that's all there is. There's just one song. But the more of an ethos that they create, the more lore they release, the more we buy into it, the more we're obsessed with it. So as a creative who's listening, a way that you can stop apologizing is realizing that anything that you have taken from inside of you and magicked outside of your body intrinsically contains you and your story. Just start telling us that story.
Yes, and I'm listening to your advice as well, because it's something that I'm really bad at. I find that, so the last video I put up on social media has done over 1 million views on TikTok, over 1 million views on Instagram. I think it's pushing towards 2 mil on Instagram now. And so I get complete and utter stage fright. And so I haven't posted another video for, we're over a month now since I've last posted that. That last post is still just running along, and I'm getting new followers every day off the back of it. And I know that I should be like riding the momentum, but as I'm like trying to work out myself of like why I'm not posting at the moment, I think I've got stage fright. I think that the idea of all these new eyeballs on me and my work is terrifying. But isn't that the reason that I was making the art in the first place, was to try and reach people, was to try and make people feel something? That at my core is what I feel good art does. It makes people feel something, whether it makes them laugh, cry, smile. It can be something silly, it can be something serious, but as long as it makes them feel something, then it's done their job. If that then is my purpose in life, which I really feel like it is, that's what I've been put here to do, is to share these things with people. Why then can I not fucking do it?
It's a great question, and I think it boils down to the fact that what every single person I've ever met craves is to be seen, and what terrifies every single person I've ever met more than anything else is being seen. And so I think it speaks to this like deep, prehistoric, caveman-like need we have to feel like we belong, to feel validated, to feel enough, and knowing that the moment we put ourselves out there to potentially be gifted any of these things, we also open up ourselves to judgment, to derision, to the cruelties of man. And that sentence feels especially potent right now. We're in the U.S. of all countries. I feel like the cruelties of man are on brazen display, especially of late. And it's very difficult to live here right now. I feel like it has been for the last while, but right now especially, it's just fucking brutal. Especially, I'm like a fucking cis white man. Like, the world has been created for me. I'm fine, clock my privilege, but it's just horrendous. I did a post on Instagram, a carousel, a little while back, like a week or two, where I basically was like, what happens when truth itself becomes negotiable? Because I was like, that's actually like, that's the downfall. Like, that's how we get fucked, because it's like, now we can't even trust the idea that a fact is still a fact, or the fact that when somebody speaks with conviction that they're even telling the truth. Anyway, I think that we are all too familiar these days with what happens when you do put yourself out there. And I will say that comparatively, I'm very lucky. I don't really get many trolls for the size of my account or the amount of views. Some of my TikToks are upwards of 9-11 million views. And so it's like, of the thousands and thousands and thousands of comments, I have flown under the radar a bit, and I'm very grateful for that. However, I think that, and this is maybe a potential answer to your question, and I said it earlier, but perhaps this is a bit more practical, transparency, right? Like, where's a video, if you wanted to do a direct-to-camera talking video, where you actually just talk about the fear that has now crept up in an amplified sense only after receiving the very success that you've craved? You know, that's a super, super ubiquitous concept, but not a bunch of people speak to it. And even if a bunch of people did, the way that they express it wouldn't be anything like the way that you would express it. And so I'm trying to sit with the idea of like all of these new eyeballs, because at the end of the day, like, you don't know any of these eyeballs mostly, right? Like, the thing that I find people are most terrified of are people that they know seeing their content, because like then the potential consequences or judgment they might receive feel ultra personal, because they can really imagine what this person over here, what Aunt Debbie might really be thinking about you and your art and that reel that you made. Yeah, I don't ever really think of the new eyeballs. And I think, to be totally frank, it's because when I create my content, I'm creating it for me. Like, I don't really think about my audience ever. I just know I'm showing up and I'm creating content that would speak to me, because I am just speaking to myself when I make my content. The fact that other people get to like bathe in the light and the warmth of whatever the fuck I choose to make, like, you're welcome, you know? And again, if it's not for you, you're welcome. Now, that's one less person you have to worry about following. So for you, I wonder if there's any truth, or if it resonates for you, that the next thing you make, which I'm certain is going to happen imminently after this conversation, I hope, it's just for you. It doesn't have anything to do with the eyeballs. There could be 5 million new eyeballs there. Wouldn't change a thing, because the way that you show up for you, the way you show up for your mom, the way that you're going to speak on that stage, like you talked about, well, that wouldn't change, right? So why should the content?
Yeah. Oh, he's bloody done it to me, guys. He's helping me in real time. No, I do appreciate that. I shall make you a promise that I'm going to make that video. Well, I'm going to write about it, and if if it becomes a script, then it becomes a script, and I'll put it out there. But I will definitely explore that.
And there's always the version 2 where you don't script it. Just saying.
Dude, honestly, so I know you don't script your videos. I do not know how you do it. I have tried to speak off the cuff, and I think you probably noticed in this interview, my head is all over the place. I don't know how I've got a podcast, dude. I don't know how this show does so well, because my brain is bouncing off the walls at all times, and I need a script, and I try and make my script sound as natural as possible. Then I'm able to like make my thoughts and feelings more concise, and I can sit and think like, what do I really think about this? And then I can work it out. If I just freeball it, it's invariably a disaster.
But why is a lack of conciseness equivalent to disaster, right? Because what it sounds like you're saying to me, because first of all, you're talking to somebody who's got ADHD, depression, anxiety. Like I've got tons of bitches up in this head. Like we take meds to calm everybody down. And I too, my brain is bouncing around at 1,000,000 miles an hour when I'm speaking. I never necessarily know what I'm going to say next. But again, it's about transparency. Like if I say something, I made a video yesterday where I was holding a buffalo wing for like half the video, and I forgot that I was holding it. And then I was like, oh, I want to take a bite of this buffalo wing. So I'm going to like chomp on this, and then I'll do like a jump cut, and I'll see you guys in a second. So then I like chomped on the wing, and I like chomp, and then I cut that out, and I was like, bleep, bloop, movie magic. And it's like, whatever, like that is not by and large great strategic storytelling, but the fuck does it matter? It was real. And I just sort of acknowledged it as it was happening. And you've been a fantastic conversationalist thus far. And so I will also just share that like you don't get better at the thing that we're talking about unless you stop scripting, because what you told me is that you script in an attempt to make it sound as natural as possible. I would argue that, do you know what natural is if you've never tried to do it without the script?
Yeah, true. I suppose this is me seeing so many social media experts who will literally cut out the pauses for breath in a video. Everything is so like boom, 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 boom. That's what's got me paranoid about if I just go on a fucking ramble, as I am one to do, it's not going to be something that anyone is going to stick around for.
And you know what? Some people won't stick around for it. And you know what? You can still edit from a ramble. I'm not saying that the only way to post a video with integrity is to have it be one full cut, say every single thing that comes to your mind, right? I mean, I do plenty of those. I love a fucking one take wonder where it's just like, here we go. Because to me, there's no better opportunity for me to say, I hid nothing from you. This is what you saw was what you got. There was no cuts within this. That doesn't make that content piece better. It just strategically in a storytelling sense serves a slightly different goal of like depositing money into that trust bank account that I'm building with them. But there's plenty of times where I will edit chunks out. I'm just not despotic about insisting that every silence, every breath be cut out, because for what it's worth, and I know this is a podcast, so it's difficult to sort of represent or do this, but I'll do it when I'm working with clients. We do take moments to think. We do wonder when we talk. We do look all over the place. I'm a big hands talker, so it's like, I'm not always making eye contact. Well, I mean, one, we're not literally present with each other, but I'm not always making eye contact with you. I look around, I find thoughts. Like, that's very human. So I like sometimes in videos where I take a second or need a second to find a thought. To me, that's actually a very generous gift I'm giving to my audience of a chance for them to watch and experience me in the moment, do the math, and find the thought. I couldn't agree less with the folks who are like, trim out every iota of silence because someone's going to scroll away. Well, then fucking scroll away, bitch. I don't need you to watch me think if that's not for you. The people that stay, though, ultimately, they really are your people.
Yeah. When you're working with your clients, I know you've said that you like quickly download their stories. So they'll just tell you about themselves. And you are then like, how are you able to do that? Is it because you are such an active listener? Or are there key questions that you ask them to draw the story out?
It's a good question. And some of it's explainable and some of it's difficult for me to explain because a lot of it's how I feel. So it's like, you're not wrong. I am a great listener and I'm and typically with clients, I'm also taking notes. So like I've got stuff in front of me, but I just hold things up here. It's feelings I get, right? It's like, again, you said something earlier before we were recording, and as I heard it, I was like, huh. And it made me think and feel all these things. I was like, oh, I'm so curious to ask David about how he feels about this or what this thing is, because I just have a sense of something. And that's why I will usually say, like, or I'll say to my clients, or I'll say to you, or I'm saying on this podcast recording, this is what's coming up for me right now. I just have this feeling. That feeling is almost always correct. I've learned. And so like, maybe that's my little witchy magic. Maybe that's just like a deep sense of empathy that verges on claircognizance. I'm not quite sure. It just always feels like I know. So what I'm really good at is sometimes with clients, not sometimes, always, I call people on their bullshit constantly, and they'll say something and I'm like, but that's just not true. And they're like, what? I was like, that's just not true. It's not real. What you just said is not a true thing because X, Y, and Z, and you feel X, Y. And they're like, oh, fuck. I'm like, no, am I wrong? And they're like, you're not wrong. I was like, I know. But like, it's like I feel it. Like it just penetrates me so immediately when somebody says something that is not real. It's difficult for me to explain. I am thinking of my current clients, and sometimes they'll say things and I'm like, I know exactly why you're saying that. I know why you think that is correct. I know why it is factually not what your like actual core person, completely unencumbered by insecurities, would say if you could or had access to that in this moment. So I think part of it, to be honest, is I've always had an ability to see people, not in the contrived way of like their potential, but like you in your completely raw state, who you are and who you could be if you led with that. And I think that that's just a feeling I get.
Yeah, I love that. I saw a description of and I'm still working this out myself, but I think I read it on Substack. It was talking about potential, and it was saying that when we see potential in people, we don't see what they're capable of. We imagine what we would do if we were in their shoes, which is such an interesting concept, because then maybe that person will never do that. And I've described myself in the past as someone who's obsessed with potential, because I look at some of the listeners to this show and I see their work, and it's such honestly, the people who listen to this show, some of them are making the most incredible things, and they've got not many followers and they're not making very much money, and it's really hard, but their work is so fucking good. And I'm just like, and I see it and I'm like, because the work is good, all we need to work around now, I don't need to teach you how to paint or sculpt or write. I just need to work on like what are the ideas around getting people to see this incredible work. And to prove my point, I've literally just weaved myself into, I don't know where I was going with that, but so feel free to jump in.
It had to, well, no, I tell you, working backwards, it had to do with potential, right? And also imprinting upon those people what you think they should do in what you think they would do in your situation by leveraging your filter in the world. And it actually is interesting, and it's a reflection to me in what I was saying before. Also, by the way, that's another one of my things. Like, I see the words in my head of the conversation we're having. Like, this is a skill I either have always had as an actor or as a person. But the way that my memory works is when I have conversations with people, it's like imprinted in dialogue in my brain. Like, I can see it. So it's like, when you're like, I don't know where I was going, I was like, I'll tell you exactly where you were going. You were talking about the piece that you read on Substack, and then you were talking about potential, and potential is this. So when I say, like, let me work backwards to somebody, or like, let me go from the last point you made, I'm just reading it in my head. So it's like, I forget that's kind of novel to do. And so like, I do say it out loud, because also it's like, wow, that Justin is really quick with words. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just kind of reading them from my brain. But something that you said that I thought was interesting is if us seeing potential in other people is really just us through our own filter and lens imprinting upon them what we would do in their shoes, I think for what it's worth, part of what I've gotten really good at is taking the exit on the highway before that one. And I think and again, intrinsically what I'm about to say is hypocritical, because I can't. So anybody could be like, you're basically saying the same thing. But I think what I'm good at is seeing people from their raw state and truly knowing what they should do, but not imprinting mine. Like, I can even imagine this person making choices I would never make, but that would suit and serve them well. And so I think that's also what's good about working with me, is that while I am happy to teach you everything I know and share with you what I would do in a certain situation, I can also truly know in the moment if like that's not what you should do. because I understand, given your values and your experience and your history and what you've shared with me about your mom and the fact that you dropped out of college and all of the information I know about you, I have a sense of what you should do that's best for you that I might never do. And so I think that's probably also why I'm good at what I do. There's a certain, I'm able to remove myself from the thing pretty entirely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mentioning creatives who are struggling with money. One of your videos that I watched recently, you said my kink is helping people earn a fuck ton of money. How do you do that?
Doing something they love.
Yes, very
Specifically.
important.
Yeah. And how did you say, how do we do that?
How do you do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Love this. I mean, truly, this like riles me up. I love it so much. And I will say in a way that feels almost anti-creative, but I think it's not if we really get to the root of it. I love money. I love money deeply. I think it gives you options. I think it gives you security. I think if you're a creative and you find ways to monetize, it allows you to be more creative. It does also then start to mean like building a business. And I do understand that that entrepreneurial sense or that like business building sense doesn't always feel baked into the creative experience. And that can be overwhelming. I totally get it as a fellow creative who has built multiple businesses. I mean, you're going to hate the answer, but how do you start is like, you got to let bitches know about who you are, because otherwise, like, how are we going to get you paid? Right. And so you said this before, and this is something that you want to help people do, right? You were saying weaving yourself into them to like help them understand how to get seen more. That's really the first step. And so if we go, okay, the answer is I need to be seen more, and I do know it's social media. And let me remember what Justin said, which is finding ways to share my story in a way that doesn't feel so unbelievably bad that I couldn't continue it, but I have to acknowledge I'm going to feel uncomfortable when I start, but I have to start anyway. What could that look like? Well, if I'm on Instagram, perhaps it looks like sharing an Instagram story, right? They disappear after 24 hours, very low stakes, with like, what's one thing you do in the morning that I might not know about, but might find interesting if I already follow you and enjoy your actual creative pieces. Again, stories are not going to be seen by people who don't follow you, so they're unhelpful largely for visibility, but they're good for nurturing relationships. Maybe perhaps on Instagram as well, if you're like, I fucking cannot talk to the camera yet, I'm just not ready for that, you can try the whole like B-roll trend with text on screen, right? So it's like take a 7 to 8 seconds, those are two options, 7 to 9 seconds perhaps, clip of you doing a thing, and like a little bit of text on screen about your process or like a thought you had while you did this. I understand that this advice feels so blurry and you want concrete steps. 1, 2, 3, here's what you should do. I was speaking to a colleague the other day who's made a lot of money doing what she does. And she, again, was like, I just feel like my messaging needs more clarity and I have to have this understanding of who I'm speaking to. And I just said to her, I was like, bitch, just for whatever it's worth, because you definitely did not ask for my advice, you can do 100K months inside of a blurry space. I just believe it. And creatives are probably going to be more expert at that than most. Money comes from when people know who you are and understand how what you create or produce technically, quote unquote, solves a problem for them. And in our case, whether they're art purchasers or avid readers, the problem you're solving is like, you scratch that itch, right? Like whatever you made scratches that itch for them. And I've never said it that way before, but I actually really enjoy it because I'm thinking of like any art I've ever seen or any music. Nothing can make me cry like going to see a show on Broadway. One, because it's so deeply personal to me. But two, it's like, it's the best of storytelling, vocals, writing, music. It's everything to me. And it just hits me in a way that so few other things can. And that's art and that's creativity. Creatives are also terrible at charging their worth. Just utterly shit. And I've learned this. And having conversations about like, cool, you look at a piece of art that costs $25,000 at a piece of art that you can buy for $200. And sometimes you could be like, but there's no difference. I'm like, well, there's an incredible difference because that person decided to charge $25,000 fucking dollars for their piece and it will sell. And the $200 piece might also sell. At that point, it's not actually about the quality or the technique of the brushstroke. It's about somebody seeing that genius or somebody identifying their own genius and setting their value somewhere. And that's a whole fucking podcast episode, I feel. But the sharing their story, why would anyone care? And then also what price do I set my stuff at? Those are like the three things that people are going to hit as creatives who want to start making money.
I have no notes because we are 100% aligned. You just condensed about 30 episodes of Creative Rebels into one soliloquy. So thank you for that. Yeah. completely aligned on that, 100%. And it's what I want in my soul. It's the reason that I do this show, is because you guys have so much to give, and you're in your own way for a lot of you. Some of you just need the permission, and the DMs that we get from people that say, this podcast changed my life. It's like, no, it didn't change your life. You changed your life because you finally acted. All you needed was permission. And from us just drumming it into your head every week with amazing guests like Justin, to finally one day you woke up and went, actually, fuck it. Maybe this is the day that I'm going to start doing the thing and really pushing it and believing in myself and promoting it and getting it out there. So, yeah, this is Justin. I love you, man. Honestly, like, love your content, and this has been really, really beautiful conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been lovely. I've never done a podcast that was so specifically geared towards creatives and the plight of people who have such genius in their bodies, minds, and hearts that need to put it outside of themselves. And I think that notion, to close it out on, actually fuck it, is all you're really waiting to decide, and you could decide that today. So fuck it. Post the thing, do the thing, and get what you have coming toward you.
Boom. He is a wordy and verbose boy. And if you decide to become one of his clients, he will call you bitch. But Justin, where can people find you online?
The bitch thing is definitely a promise. So if that's not for you, then, consider twice. I'm.
It's just so many times you were like, I was talking to my client and I was like, bitch. And I was like, fuck you know.
It's real. I think I get a little permission because I'm like adorable and gay, but at the end of the day, it's said with so much love and respect that I think people never take it. And so it's a very real thing. I'm across the internet pretty much as Justin Schuman official, and you will hear me say many, many times in any of my content that I'm Justin Schuman, and human is quite literally in my last name. And so that it will help you remember how to spell it, although there is a little secret C before the H. So Justin Schuman Official on TikTok, Instagram, but like you really can't find a platform I'm not on at this point because it is sort of about this omnipresent approach, which is another whole conversation. I really love my followers, in the same way that you feel about the listeners to this podcast is how I feel about the folks who follow me. So just know that every time somebody decides to hit follow, I really treasure that. And I appreciate you wanting to join me on this journey.
Yeah, go and join Justin's little family. I am a member. Amazing, Justin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know someone who would benefit from listening to this episode? If you do, share it with them. This podcast literally wouldn't exist if it weren't for the paid subscribers over at creativerebels.substack.com and for the team at Joy Collective.